Okay. All right, it is September 30th, 2021. We're here at the Pyle Center with Rosalie Lopez Hirano. I'm Michelle Hirsch. And Rosalie, we're going to start with the easy questions, like when and where were you born?
I was actually born about an hour and a half away from Tempe in a small mining town. I was born in Globe, but I grew up in Miami, Claypool to be exact, for those of you who are familiar with that part of the state. That's where I was born.
And when did you settle in Tempe? And what prompted you to even move here?
Well, I attended Arizona State University 4 years, and then lived in and around the East Valley, a couple of detours through Tucson and Washington, D.C. before returning to Arizona. And when my husband and I married in the late 90s, we bought a house in Tempe, and we've been living there ever since.
So I know you raised your children here, but why don't you share a little bit about your children?
I have 2 kids, Noah, he'll be 22 in December, and Olivia is 18, and both of them are at Northern Arizona University right now. Noah will be graduating next May, and Olivia, due to COVID and a gap year, she is in her freshman year at NAU. One of the reasons we bought the house in Tempe was because of the strong reputation of the Kyrene School District. And so we live in the Altamira neighborhood, which feeds into the Cielo Elementary School, where both kids attended, and Apprende Middle School. And they both graduated from Corona del Sol High School.
Good. Share with us a little bit about your first years coming to Tempe.
My father was an avid fan of Arizona State University athletics, and he had 2 daughters, no sons, and by default, I became his sports buddy. I learned very early on that was a great way to spend more time with him and to get his attention. So since I was about 11, he introduced me to ASU football. I became a rabid fan and would spend my Saturdays with my transistor radio laying on the shag carpet in our living room listening to the games, and delighted on the rare occasions that they were on TV. This was way before ESPN. I would wait anxiously for the Sunday morning paper to read every word written about the previous night's game. I developed a crush on Danny White, and the first game that my dad ever took me to, I was just in awe as we walked into the stadium. This was the old Sun Devil Stadium, which is basically the current one, but there were bleachers in the north end zone, and that's where we sat. And as we sat down and I opened the program, they featured a player every week, and the player featured that game was Danny White. So I had a 8x10 autographed photo of Danny White that immediately went up on the wall of my bedroom. And that was sort of the beginning. Extended to basketball, baseball. In college, I took advantage of the opportunity to attend football games fairly cheap, basketball games for next to nothing, and baseball games were free. So for 4 years, I think I spent the entire spring at Packard Stadium. Sometimes I would take a textbook and pretend to study, but most of the time I just followed every pitch. One of my funny family memories is the year ASU went to the College World Series. They lost in the final in a heartbreaking loss, and I think I was 12, and I cried. I cried at everything, but this was very emotional for me. My sister made fun of me, and I remember my dad scolding her not to do that because I was very invested in the team and had followed them all year, and losing was very hard. So stop making fun of your sister. I saw Eddie Bain pitch a no-hitter. I saw Bob Horner hit many home runs into the Salt River. Saw a lot of I saw Barry Bonds, Sal Band, or I don't think I saw Sal. Yeah, I did see Sal Bando. So a lot of very famous players that went on to the major leagues, I saw perform at Packard Stadium.
You shared a little bit about your dad and his love of sports, and but just overall, can you say who in your family was most influential to you and why?
Both my parents had tremendous influence on me um, in different ways. I learned my way around the kitchen with my mom, cooking traditional recipes, traditional Mexican recipes, homemade tortillas, beans, chili. Um, she was the driving force in our family, and really was the one that pushed us to our limits to ensure that we achieved the best that we could. My dad was stern but very loving. Both of them shared a strong sense of unconditional love for us, and it was through that that they kind of gave me permission as an adult to fail, because I always knew that no matter what happened, I would always have home to go to. And that kind of enabled me as an adult to take a few risks, to move, to do some different things out of my comfort zone. Both were musically inclined. I remember as a child, they would invite friends over. My mom would be at the piano, my dad would be at the guitar. They had a friend who played violin, one who played the clarinet, and they would have these jam sessions in our living room, the small house in Claypool. My sister and I would be hiding in our room with pillows over our head, wishing that they would go home as they played into the wee hours of the morning. Looking back on it now, I wish I had appreciated those concerts, those living room concerts that they performed. They would often record them on a reel-to-reel recorder, which I wish I knew now where those were. But they were very musically inclined. Our house always had music in it. One of our main pieces of furniture was a stereo in the living room. So I received a lot from them. They were very fiercely patriotic, very devout in their religion, and family was very important to them. And I think those are the lessons that I carried forward into adulthood.
Oh, wonderful. You went to ASU. Can you tell us what you studied, what you got your degree in, and maybe a favorite teacher or experience there?
I graduated from ASU with a Bachelor's of Arts in English. I started out wanting to go into criminal justice, and I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I read a book one summer, The Trials of a Philadelphia Lawyer, and I thought that plus watching the TV show Owen Marshall, Counselor at Law, thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And I took a class, and the professor said, well, if you really want to be a lawyer, learn how to write well. And so I said, okay, well, then I guess I'll major in English. I had exhibited some strengths. I attended parochial school for 8 years in Globe, and the nuns instilled in me very sound writing skills and practices. And I took several writing courses. One professor, Mariana Brose, called me into her office one day. I had turned in an assignment, descriptive assignment, and she said, you have a talent. What are you going to do with it? And I said, I don't know. And then the other professor that had a profound impact was Dr. Nick Salerno, who used to host on Saturday evenings a classic movie show on Channel 8. And my mom and I would watch those movies. My mom, that is another gift from my mom, was a love of classic movies. And so we would watch, Cinema Classics was the name of the show. And so every Saturday night we would watch them. I remember one of them was Birdman of Alcatraz with Burt Lancaster. And Dr. Salerno would come in periodically during the show and comment on the movie being featured. So I think it was in my senior year, had an opportunity to take a course from him, and I was so intimidated, and I called my mom and I said, Mom, I'm taking a class with Nick Salerno. And she's like, you're kidding. And I'm like, no. She's like, well, you better do good. And it was an upper division class, so it was pretty small. And turned in a paper, and I got an A+, and it was the proudest grade I had ever received because it came from Dr. Salerno. I did go into his office a couple of times. He was just as charming and engaging in person and supportive as a professor as he was on TV. So that was my experience at ASU. In addition to, my dad was an avid golfer, and I played golf in high school. And every spring I would take golf at school for credit, PE credit. By my senior year, I had exhausted all my credits, but I took it anyway because it was a great way to twice a week walk from my dorm at Manzanita across rural to the practice fields, the football practice fields, the band practice fields, and hit golf balls for a couple hours. And my brush with greatness there, one of the instructors was Fred Miller, who was infamous as the athletic director during the Frank Kush controversy. I didn't like him because we were Frank Kush fans, but I believe it was Dr. Miller was actually a very nice person. And I remember him coming over and saying, Lopez, there's nothing I can tell you about your swing, so I'm just going to stand here and pretend to be instructing you, but you just go ahead and keep hitting golf balls. So I have very, very fond memories of my time at ASU.
And how would you say political events of the day affected your educational opportunities or experiences?
Interestingly enough, I was just before the advent of the universities in the state dedicating resources to minority recruitment. I was the first person in my family to graduate with a degree. There really weren't a lot of programs or support for minority students at the time. So I kind of fumbled my way through college, just the accident of good luck and a little bit of hard work. I didn't work a whole lot, but I did enough. But that I think is the main thing. I see now and in fact, later on I went on to be employed by Northern Arizona University in Southern Arizona doing minority recruitment. And so I often wonder what difference that would have made. I mean, clearly I made it through okay, but I think there were probably services and experiences that I may have benefited from if I had known about them or if they had been more widely available. So probably the minority recruitment of students to our universities is probably one of the biggest quote-unquote political issues through my youth.
And why don't you share with us about your initial internship and how that led to further career accomplishments and successes?
When I was a junior, I saw an advertisement in the state press that the office of U.S. Senator Dennis DeConcini was looking for interns for his Phoenix and Mesa office. And again, when I talk about the permission to fail from my parents, I told my mom and dad that I'd seen it. I had had an interest in politics. When I was a senior in high school, I was a junior Rotarian, and I actually met the senator at an event in Globe, Miami, and he looked at me and he said, well, what would you like to do with your future? And I said, I'd like your job. I was a little bit flip in those days. So when I saw the internship, I said, yeah, but I'm sure there are other kids who are far more qualified than I will. I wouldn't even probably get an interview. And I remember sitting at a cafe on Apache, I can't remember which one it was, but my mom saying, you need to apply, and what do you have to lose? And I did. And then I became the intern that never went away. I did one internship. They asked me to stay on. I actually worked during the summer. I took a couple of courses in summer school. That actually allowed me to graduate on time in 4 years. But I worked in the Mesa office as a senior. And then upon graduation, they offered me actually a paid staff position, entry level, in the Phoenix office, which I took. And that started an 8-year career in the senator's office. I worked in Mesa, Phoenix, and ultimately in Washington, D.C. So, and that opened up many, many opportunities that I otherwise would never have had.
Tell us what year you got married and bought your house in Tempe and what neighborhood you live in.
I returned to Arizona in the early 90s and left the senator's staff to work at the Arizona Department of Health Services as their legislative liaison, which is a fancy term for lobbyist, at the state capitol. I quickly learned that state agency lobbyists were sort of the bottom feeders of the lobbying class. We were to be seen and not heard and didn't have a lot of clout because we represented a state agency. But while at the department, I met this very interesting guy who also played golf and who invited me to join he and his friends to play golf one weekend. I must have passed the test because they then invited me to join them in a state agency golf league where we played tournaments once a month. And that was the beginning of our long relationship and eventual marriage. He went on to be the chief of the tobacco tax healthcare program. Arizona passed a tax on tobacco products in the mid-90s, and he supervised the healthcare portion of it. And I was tapped to run the health promotion, tobacco prevention part of it, the tobacco education program, which some people may remember as the tobacco teeth staining, smelly, puking habit campaign. And we used to joke, because we shortly after that got married, we used to joke that our house in Altamira, south of Warner, east of McClintock, is the house that tobacco bought, since we were both head of the respective tobacco programs at the time. When I became pregnant with our first, I decided to step off the merry-go-round and be a stay-at-home mom. Very fortunate to have been able to have done that. And Noah was born in 1999. Olivia was born about 2 years later, and I stayed home with both of them. I branched out a little bit and did some at-home consulting work, but for the most part, I stayed home in Tempe and I raised the kids and did all those things that I'm very blessed now that they have moved on and are beginning their own lives, and we have an empty nest. The memories of that time with them, play groups and story time at the Tempe Library, Parks and Rec, learning to swim at Kiwanis, all of those things. I'm very grateful to have those memories as they've now flown and grown.
What would you say makes your neighborhood distinctive or unique?
One of the things that I really like about Tempe is there are a variety of services that are available to families who live here. And we are very blessed that our neighborhood in Altamira is clean, it's safe. Occasionally it takes a little long to get the bulk pickup, but you know, for the most part, you know, it's a very good place to raise your family. We have a park in our neighborhood that was the beneficiary of some grant money and some improvements, which, although my kids were grown, my son and his friends still go down and play basketball in the resurfaced basketball court. And living there, raising the kids there, we always felt safe.
What is your opinion of the services the city has provided to your neighborhood?
Well, I can't say enough about all of the things that our family has taken advantage of over the years, starting with you know, the decision to stay home with the kids was hard. I had been working for most of my adult life, and you know, the transition to stay-at-home mom is not always easy, a little isolating. And I saw in the recreation catalog a course called Mothers Who Write. And so I was very fortunate. My parents would come frequently and babysit the kids, and my mom would stay with Noah while I went to the library once a week with a group of about 6 other women, and we would write. And after the course ended, 3 of us continued in a small writing group, and we would meet at Wildflower Cafe at Guadalupe and McClintock, and we would come up with writing assignments, and we would share and critique, and we'd talk, and we'd eat. And through that, I was emboldened to submit a piece to the Arizona Republic, which at the time had a community section, hard copy delivered, I think it was 3 times a week. And they accepted one. I submitted another that they accepted as well. And the editor at the time, Bob Schuster, said, you know, we really like your writing. Would you like to be an ongoing contributing columnist? And I was delighted. And one of the pieces that I wrote was about the joy of going to the mailbox and finding a new recreation catalog in the mail. And I made the comparison to Steve Martin in The Jerk, who was so excited when the new phone book arrived. And I said, they're here, the new recreation catalog is here, you know, because we entertained our kids through a lot of those offerings. My son learned, as I said, how to swim at Kiwanis. He participated in swimming competition for 2 or 3 summers. So we spent a lot of time at the McClintock pool. We spent a lot of time in the library, then in the basement which was a perfect respite, especially during the summer, for me to be able to just kind of let them loose, play with the games and the tables and the toys and books with that big window looking out in air-conditioned comfort, tiring them out and then putting them in the car, and they'd fall asleep, and that was our day. They took a lot of different courses there. So that, if for no other reason, just the offerings from Parks and Rec were lifesavers and a big part of my kids' childhoods.
Oh, very fun. Are there any other traditions or special holidays or cultural events that your family celebrated or still celebrates in Tempe?
Well, I was the annoying mom who used to organize family activities. Forced merriment is what I would call it. And for several years, we would go on the Friday after Thanksgiving, provided it didn't conflict with the ASU U of A football game. We would come downtown to Mill Avenue for the Festival of Lights Parade. And I would insist that we get there early to get a good spot with nobody in front of us, with the lawn chairs. People would be grumpy, but by the time that first entry would start rolling down Mill with all of the lights, everybody kind of forgot about their grievances, and we would have a nice evening outside on Mill Avenue. And there's, people are always throwing candy, and there was a float with Corey Woods, who I believe was a councilman at the time, and he threw candy at the kids, and I knew Corey, and I waved, and I said, "Hi, Corey," and he says, "Hey, Rosalie," and my kid's like, "You know him? How do you know him? You know somebody in the parade?" I'm like, "Yes, of course I do. This is Tempe. Everybody knows everybody." So that became a family tradition until they got too old to force them in the car to go.
What role has faith or spirituality had in your life, and are there any special activities or accomplishments that you were part of in a faith-based organization?
Again, faith was a very important part of my parents' beliefs, and they raised us Catholic. They made sacrifices to send us to parochial school, and so I grew up Catholic, strayed a little bit as an adult, like a lot of people. And when my oldest was born, made the decision to return to the church and have him baptized. And for the next probably 7 or 8 years, I was an active member of St. Andrew's Catholic Church, which, although it's in Chandler, serves a lot of residents of South Tempe. And, unable to resist joining things, I quickly became very involved in the St. Andrew's Moms, which was a lifesaver. I mean, I got to meet other women with kids the same age. My kids were able to have playmates and organized activities. I was a calendar event coordinator, and we did tours of fire departments and Krispy Kreme donuts, and just a bunch of different things that were fun for the kids to experience. I helped with the annual rummage sale, did childcare there. I was the craft lady for 3 or 4 years during Vacation Bible School, and I ultimately started teaching religious education to first graders, which I figured was probably the highest level of my mastery of religious education. So I was pretty comfortable with first graders. Beyond that, I don't think I would have tried, but it was fun to kind of watch the kids of the friends of mine. It created a community for us. We don't have a lot of family nearby, but the kids from St. Andrew's Moms and the moms became our family at that time. And I see them now on Facebook graduating and going on to college. And I just marvel at the fact that I taught these kids in first grade, some of the elementary basics of their religious education. So.
And you mentioned your children went to Cielo and Apprende and Corona. So I know you were involved in PTO, parent organizations, and then went beyond volunteering in the school district. Can you share a little bit about volunteering and then also working in the Kyrene School District?
Yeah, again, unable to resist the urge to join. And figuring from my political experience that if I ever needed, my kids ever were in a situation where they might need some help or there was something that would require some intervention, I wanted to be on good terms with the principal and the teachers and be supportive of them. And so I've done my time in craft rooms, laminating, copying. I was always afraid of the copier though, because they were always very temperamental, and I just didn't want to be the person to break it. But spent a lot of hours there. I told my husband one day, "You've not lived until you've sat and listened to 30, first graders count backwards from 100. They would start 100, 99, 98, 73, 62, and you'd have to say, no, we got to start over." So I did a lot of time volunteering in the school, even at home, taping puzzle boxes and counting out flashcards, that kind of thing. I've raised a good chunk of money for Cielo and Apprende over the years. Again, I have no problem asking people for a donation or for money if it's going to benefit my kids or the other students. And because of my political experience and background, I started attending governing board meetings and being an advocate in the school district, making sure that our kids were getting what they needed. Actually, that's how I met Michelle, who was a very trusted and exemplary governing board member. And I also started to support the district's bond and override elections, again, with my partner in crime over here, Mrs. Hirsch, and successfully led victories in 2013. In 27, we hold the distinction of being one of the very, very few districts to successfully pass 3 ballot measures in 1 year. And I swore that that was going to be my last go-round, yet here we are in 2021, and I am supporting, I'm not running, but I am supporting and helping the Political Action Committee, Keep Kyrene Strong, pass 1 more override, and then I'm done. But, I think it's very important. It's my gift to the community. My husband and I were always going to be sure that our kids got what they needed in terms of their education. But I would often wonder, what about the kids who don't have parents who aren't involved, who are holding 2 jobs, or are, the kids of single parents? Who's looking out for them? Who's making sure that they get what they need? And, I think we all have an obligation to make sure that we have good schools, because this is our future. These are the kids who are going to take care of us. And so I feel it's really important for our community to get behind that. And again, I think Tempe does that. Whether it's Tempe Elementary, Kyrene, or Tempe Union, our community has a really strong record of supporting education, and I'm proud of that.
And I'll just put a little plug in for you in that it's literally millions of dollars that you have helped pass these overrides. I mean, this one is 13.8 million. In 2017, it was a similar amount. So this is millions of dollars that go to support arts and music and PE and student support services. So it's sometimes easy to gloss over and say, you help and all that, but it takes a lot of work to make that happen and reach out to the community. And your political and campaign experience has benefited our community. So
well, and I would say also that I wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't put my reputation such as it is, or my time and talent into something if I didn't think it was worth it. And again, having sat through many, many hours of governing board meetings, and later as an employee, Kyrene does an exceptional job with the dollars that they do receive. I won't get real political here about how little we get in support from the state, but the reality is taxpayer dollars go a long way toward ensuring that our kids have a good education. And if I felt that Kyrene was not credible in their use of those dollars, I would not be spending as much of my time on these campaigns. And they consistently perform as one of the highest in terms of the percent of dollars that go into the classroom. And were that not the case, you would not see me involved in these campaigns. But I truly am, honored to put my reputation out there in the community to support them.
And your skills in helping, yeah, thank you for that. What Tempe businesses or events do you feel contribute most to the community, either now or in the past, or places that you shop or dine or frequent or appreciate?
Well, I think it's a tribute to many of our local businesses that when they see me coming, they don't close the door. Because there's a high likelihood that I am going to ask them for a gift card, a donation. May we use your patio at a discounted rate for an event. We are very blessed in this community to have businesses who truly are invested in making this a great place to live. And not just for their own financial gain, but because I think they truly believe that it's a community worth investing in. And I'd leave somebody out if I tried to start naming any one of them. But again, I've raised a lot of money for different organizations and causes in Tempe, and very, very rarely have I ever been turned down. And these are the businesses that I frequent. These are the businesses I tell my friends to frequent, because these are businesses who put their money literally where their mouth is in supporting our community.
You've shared a lot of ways that you appreciate Tempe, but can you maybe share some ways you feel particularly connected to the community of Tempe? And what I'm kind of getting at, I'll hint, is Sister Cities, your involvement with Sister Cities.
Well, again, growing up in a small town, everybody knows everybody. If you're out doing something you shouldn't, your parents know about it before you even hit the driveway. You know, I would go to my mom to Safeway on Saturdays, and it would take 3 hours because she would see people. My wedding invitation list grew exponentially because she would call me and say, well, I ran into so-and-so, and can we add them to the list? So I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone, and I never imagined that my kids would have anything similar as kids in Tempe, and I was wrong. Tempe is a place where, you know, it's not uncommon for everyone to know the mayor personally or to know council members. They're our neighbors. People are all involved in a lot of the same activities that you are. My kids became me, and that they would hate to go to the store, and they would roll their eyes and throw themselves, Mom, stop talking, because I would see people that I knew. And there are two activities in Tempe that I think really created that small town feel for us. One is Tempe South Little League. My son played baseball all the way through his junior year in high school, and he played club ball. But it all started on the fields on Kyrene and Warner. And we spent many, many hours. I joked that when I die, scatter my ashes over Tempe South Little League, because I certainly spent enough hours there. On any given night in the spring, you can go and prop up your lawn chair and see your neighbors and your friends, the kids that your kids go to school with. You watch them play, you encourage them, you see parents, you buy raffle tickets. And it truly was one of the most fulfilling experiences for us as a family. My son was fortunate in that 2 of the years he played in All-Stars, we went to the regional tournament. We had the delight of spending, I think it was like 8 days in Yuma in July. And when we checked in, our air conditioning wasn't working in our room. But we had that tournament, and then the next year we went to Tucson. And we came very close both times to moving on to the regionals in California. But that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the friendships that we developed in those years. And to this day, we're very close to several of the families that he played with, and those boys are still friends. And my guess is that when the time comes for them to be married, we'll be going to those weddings. So that was a gift to us. The other experience that both of my children had the benefit of was participating in Tempe Sister Cities. And I have to say, I was very surprised when our oldest came home one night and said, there's this thing called Sister Cities, and you go to a foreign country, and I want to do it. And this is a little out of character for him. And I was like, what is this? He's like, well, I'll go to a foreign country for 5 weeks, and then someone from the foreign country will come and live with us for 5 weeks. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not keen on that. But I could tell he really wanted it. And I said, well, if you want to do this, it's all on you. I am not I'm not helping you with the application. I'm not going to babysit you. You got to do this on your own. To my surprise, he did. And he was very, very focused. And he did an exceptional application. He was on time for his interviews. He made sure he had the appropriate clothing. And he was blessed with an opportunity to go to Ireland, to Carlow, Ireland. And again, I did attend Catholic school and was taught by Irish nuns. So I felt that this was sort of, again, karma, or it was something that was just meant to be. And he got an amazing family. He spent 5 amazing weeks in Ireland. We scrambled during that 5 weeks to restore some order to our home and replaced flooring and cleaned up the yard and all of those good things. And we're blessed with the presence of this young man from Carlow who fit in with our family immediately. And Sister Cities does an amazing job of providing both the kids who come here from our sister cities with an amazing experience for 5 weeks in the summer. They go to the Grand Canyon, they go to Disneyland, we have barbecues and pool parties, and it really was a blessing for us. A couple of years later, it was the 50th anniversary of the twinning with Carlow, and we were invited and we attended a delegation trip to Carlow and got to stay with Noah's host family. They are like friends. We still keep in touch. I hope someday that they'll be able to come here. And I'm planning for a return trip to Ireland because I do want to go to Cork, County Cork, which is where my nuns came from. But it came time for my daughter, and she also applied and was accepted, and she got to go to Trollhättan, Sweden, and spent 5 weeks there. We had the exchange student here, and it's more than just an exchange. It's really it's an opportunity for Tempe to showcase itself to the world, and the incredible work that's done by the Sister Cities organization in making this a quality opportunity. I'm saddened by the effect of COVID and the fact that they haven't been able to go through with the exchange the last 2 summers. I hope that someday they will be able to return to that because it really is an amazing program and an opportunity for the kids and for the families. I'm not sure who got more out of that summer, my son or me, but it really is, it's a gift, and it definitely is a crown jewel for the city of Tempe.
What do you, Rosalie, value most and why?
If you haven't picked up from my answers, I would have to say it's got to be my family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, carrying on the legacy of my own family. At the end of the day, those are the 3 people who matter most to me. And, you know, again, maybe I'm a little reflective because the nest is empty and the house is a little quiet right now. But again, it's given me opportunity to reflect on how blessed I've been to have had the experiences with my kids, good, bad, and indifferent. And most of them, wonderful memories, a lot of them created here in Tempe. But family, at the end of the day, really is the most important thing. For anything else I may have accomplished professionally or any of the things that I've had an opportunity to do and enjoy, it's the activities with my family that really matter.
So how would you want your loved ones to remember you?
Well, I've said that I hope they will say, you know, she wasn't that bad. I hope they will say, you know, she could cook a good meal. And I hope they thought I was funny.
In what ways are you proud of Tempe?
Again, if I had to pick anywhere in this country to live, I think I would still pick Tempe. It's progressive in its agenda in terms of environmental concerns. It's mindful of the importance of a social safety net for those of us who are not as blessed at any given point in time. It's pretty inclusive. Again, it's very easy to know our leaders, and I think that they are, for the most part, they're very good at hearing the good and the bad. I've been known to speak my mind on occasion and have shared things with our elected local officials, but they appreciate it and they take from it. I think it's a city that provides a wide variety of opportunity for its residents. I think its investment in basic services is pretty good. Again, everything is relative, and I think we get sometimes caught up in our own little silo, and you don't realize until you visit other communities how good we have it here in Tempe. Because there are some communities who don't have many of the advantages that we do, or the leadership that we do, that pays attention to those things. So I think it's been fairly fiscally responsible. I think it's managed its budget well, and the fact that even in some of the downturns that Tempe has flourished in attracting new businesses here. We have a major university. We've got a very good school system. As I said, Kyrene, Tempe L, and Tempe Union are all very good school systems. So, I think we have a lot to be proud of in Tempe. I think sometimes we take it for granted a little bit. But, again, if I had to do it all over again, I think I would still make the same choice to live here with my family.
And you have done a wonderful job of sharing work and family and experiences in Tempe. Is there anything that I didn't ask or that you might like to add about work, family, experiences living in Tempe, anything?
No, again, we made the choice to live here. Even though the kids are grown and flown, I think we will stay in our current house. I don't anticipate us, going anywhere for the near future anyway, because we are very happy in South Tempe. And, we've got great entertainment opportunities. We are season ticket holders at Gamage. We look forward to those. We've got some amazing restaurants and places to go just to sit and relax with friends on the weekend. We really do have quite a bit here to make life comfortable, and I think we're very fortunate to have that in Tempe.
Thank you so much. Do you want to open it up to anybody else have any questions they'd like to ask?
I'd like to ask
Yeah.
one. So as I've listened to you speak, this is Dwayne Rowan asking this question. As I've listened to you speak about how involved you've been in the community, for that resident of Tempe, or any other city for that matter, who hasn't gotten involved in the community, what's the case for doing that?
I think if you dig deep enough, you will find something that aligns with your interests and your passions, that will provide you with an opportunity to become involved. And you'll be surprised at how quickly you kind of get a feel for it, and how you begin to get involved in other things. It may surprise you, but I am very introverted. If left to my own devices, I would stay comfortably at home in my own little corner, in my own little chair, with my iPad playing Bubble Pop. But I think when you have kids, you're kind of pushed to get more involved in your community, because you want it to be a good community for them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time that I've invested is because I want this to be a good place for other people to live as well as my own family. But I think, there are many different opportunities, either through the individual organizations or through, in fact, I just saw something that they're recruiting for vacancies on boards and commissions. And I think sometimes we tend to talk too much to ourselves in our head that, oh, well, there isn't anything that I could possibly bring to this. There are all these other people, kind of like my internship opportunity. The voice of my mom saying, well, you have nothing to lose. You can only try. And I think everyone has something to contribute. And the fact that you live here is qualification enough. Whatever your background and experience that you bring is valuable to any organization, to any mission. So I would just kind of encourage you to push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. Baby steps are always good at first. Find something that you really are passionate in. Recruit a buddy to do it with you. I didn't know Michelle at first, but we now tend to get in a lot of good trouble together. So it's sometimes, there's safety in numbers. So find a friend who is maybe equally reluctant to get involved. But I would just say that it's a really great way, regardless of your station in life. There is nothing more valuable than your time and your talent. And there are many opportunities, I think, in Tempe for anyone to become involved, including young people, to get involved.
Thank you.
Love that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I do have a few questions. So Rosalie, I know you said before that you use your Facebook page as your personal journal, yourself, to record your own experiences, and you share many charming stories and experiences that are even hard with your Facebook friends. Can you tell us about a few of those and the feedback you've gotten? Because I know that people really appreciate that connection and the what they get through your writing that is helps them feel connected. You talk about traditions of going to the tea room, all kinds of stuff. Go ahead.
Well, it's a curse. The curse of a writer is we're always looking for an audience. And now that I'm retired, I retired in July. I'm looking at, refocusing a little bit on my writing, but in the interim, I have relied on Facebook as my outlet and my audience. I am very selective about whom I choose the friend requests that I choose to accept, because I am pretty candid on there. I keep it real. I think Facebook tends sometimes to be a little bit of an echo chamber of my life is all happy, happy, joy, joy, and you only see the good parts, in the words of William Goldman in The Princess Bride. Well, there are other stories to be told in addition to the good parts. And I am pretty candid about some of the struggles of, life in general, as we all have. Sometimes to the chagrin of my husband and my children. When I was writing for the Republic, I wrote a lot of stories about motherhood and about my kids, and then they reached an age where it didn't feel right. These were not my stories to tell. In fact, my son threatened me with legal action at the age of 12 that if I wrote about him again without his permission, he would serve me with papers. So, you have to be a little bit mindful of that, about what you share. But I'm very glad in Facebook Memories that I record some of the stories that I have, because it reminds me of different points of my life in the last, I guess I've been on Facebook for maybe 12 years, 10 years. But it is a way for me to keep track for myself. Again, humor was a very important value in my household growing up, so I do try to make them a little light, a little humorous, a little ironic. I sometimes get a little carried away, and probably am a little bit too strident in expressing my political views, but again, people who are friends of me on the page know who I am, and I make no apologies. My political leanings have shifted over time. I've become more conservative in some areas and more liberal in others. But, I think that's important to kind of share with my very close circle of friends on Facebook, of which you are one, Mikkel and Michelle, obviously. But one of the best parts of my day is in the morning is to go back and check my Facebook memories to remind me. And that was especially true during the pandemic, which I think we all struggled with in different ways, but also had some very beneficial things to it. But it's interesting now, a year later, to kind of read where I was. And then I can someday share those with my kids. I do intend, whether they want it or not, to give both of them with probably an oral history. And actually this exercise, which I was a little reluctant to do, and only because Michelle twisted my arm, but in going through some of the questions, I thought, I need to keep these, and I need to expand on some of the answers and use this as a starting point for that legacy that I will share with my kids. I've already given them the narrative of the day they were born, which I've written for both of them, 2 very different days, I might add. But, I think it's important for them to know some sense of their history. They have some memory. I'll ask them, well, do you remember this? And they'll say vaguely, which just appalls me because at the time it was the be-all and the center of my universe. Why wasn't it yours, and why can't you recite every moment? Sad thing is, and the lesson I learned, my mom passed the day after Christmas several years ago. And for Christmas, I had purchased a book on writing or transcribing your oral history, and I bought her a little handheld microphone, and she never got to use it. And I truly, truly regret not having captured not only her stories, but also my dad's stories. I mean, they grew up in the Great Depression. You know, I do have memory of some of them, but the memories are sort of fading, and I wish I had recorded them and written them down, so I vowed not to make the same mistake with my kids.
So good.
I remember reading you in the Republic before I ever met you in person, and it resonated with me, and I think with a lot of people. So I hope that someday you'll find another wider outlet to share these stories.
Yeah, and that was a very, again, that was a lot of fun. I'm a night owl, so I would write those pieces often at 2, 3 in the morning. I'd get an idea and I would sit down and write them. There was a bin with all of those articles in it, but they started about halfway through my stint as a community contributing columnist. They started publishing my email address, and I still have a folder in my email inbox of emails that I received from people. One of my most proud moments, over Christmas break, I took the kids to the Peterson house, which was decorated for Christmas and full of very interesting Christmas traditions. Is it Danish? The Danish traditions related to Christmas. And it was printed in the Republic. And probably about a month later, I got an email from a Danish newsletter in Iowa, and they wanted permission to reprint my column, which I contacted the Republic, and they said sure. But my words reached the Danish community in Iowa. So the written word is very powerful, and it was a lot of fun writing those columns.
Just a couple more. I know you and Michelle share a love of Elvis, and share a love of Donnie and Marie, right? You were able to meet Donnie and Marie with that on your girls' trips with your small group of friends. What impresses me about being able to be an onlooker, and appreciate that is, I believe your small group of friends on these girl trips comes from different political beliefs, and so can you share with people listening what you would recommend as far as some of the things going on in our world today with you said echo chamber, people aligning with people with their beliefs, you know what I'm saying? How did you form that girl group that you all could find bonding in other ways?
There's a couple of things in responding to that question. One is the appeal of Elvis and Donnie and Marie is universal and transcends all politics, gender, religion. I mean, they are above all of us mere mortals. So that has a lot to do with it. And I've been to Graceland twice. And I made Donnie laugh. So
you did.
Back to my wanting my legacy to be funny, I can always say, maybe my tombstone should say she made Donnie laugh. The other thing I would say is I have been incredibly blessed with 2 or 3 very small but very strong friend groups, and they come from different places. And that, I think, is one of the gifts of Facebook, is that I'm still in contact with my very first best friend that I met when I was in, 2nd grade. I have friends from high school, friends from college, friends from all of my professional associations, and it's really nice to be able to remain connected with them through Facebook. But in the here and now, I've got about 3 of those three of those posses that I know I can count on, not only for an escape and a getaway, but also if I just kind of need some support. And I value those friendships more than anything. And the important thing is, if we come from different places, when it comes to politics or anything else, that becomes secondary. It's not really part of the equation. What's part of the equation is the fact that we formed a bond, some over baseball, some over just our work in the community, some from our work at Cielo or at Apprende. And that's what's important. It's the ability to laugh at the same things. We all find some of the same things funny. To share a love for art, for music, for good wine and bad wine, for good food, for the chance to come over and sit in my backyard. I got a fire pit for Christmas, so it's those evenings just sitting around there with a blanket and just talking and remembering, and sometimes sharing things we didn't know about each other, that perhaps not a lot of people know, and making that connection with them. Politics is probably the least important thing. Well, it's important to me in a lot of different ways because it's been a lot of my life's work, and I do think it's important. But when it comes to friendships, it's really probably best left outside the door, because there are so many other things that I think you can find ways to connect with people. And I think that's what you need to focus on. It's hard right now because things have become so polarized, and sometimes the politics feels very personal. In fact, in Facebook Memories, I shared a post from, I think it was about a year ago, where I said, for those of you who feel differently, understand when I turn on the TV and I hear people talking about Mexicans in very derogatory and inflammatory ways, or when I hear people, say some of the things that they say, that's me. That's me. And I'm struggling with how you can be my friend if you ascribe to that way of thinking. So, but again, the other things really do. If there is a true friendship to be had, there are other things that you can focus on rather than politics.
Thank you. And my last question is about your cooking that you mentioned, and your parents and your loved ones who've gone before. I'd love to hear, is that healing to you when you pull out the tamale recipe, or do that from, your mom didn't even have a recipe, right? She taught you from scratch. And so what is that like to recreate those recipes that are old family recipes?
Well, I've self-diagnosed that cooking and food is my language of love. And I express my love for my family and my friends through cooking. And now that I am retired, I have more time for it. And the food contains a lot more love, instead of, racing home and trying to just put something on the table that everyone will eat, as opposed to being able to plan a meeting. And I love the process from beginning to end. I love coming up with a menu in my head, and then making the list of ingredients, and then actually doing the shopping, although now I rely on Bash's curbside delivery. But actually doing the shopping and then preparing the ingredients and presenting my loved ones with a hearty and tasty meal, even if it's simple. But the traditional dishes do bring with them a lot of memories, and sometimes there are a few tears in the tamales or in the albondigas, which were my dad's favorite, which is a Mexican meatball soup. That is another thing that I want to do. I did one for my niece many, many years ago, but I'm going to put together, and that's why on Facebook you'll see photos of many of the dishes I prepare, because I am going to make a cookbook for both of my kids so that those recipes will carry forward. The highlight of my week is my son sent me a photo of salmon and actual vegetables that he cooked in his little apartment, and I was just delighted. But cooking and food, again, the memories, the history, and the traditions that come with them, I think are more important even than the food itself. And, I will often get teary at Food City, going up and down the aisles and seeing ingredients, or hearing, some of the Mexican music played. over the loudspeaker because it evokes memories of my mom and my dad and growing up. And my mom had a very small kitchen, but she produced some amazing traditional meals for us, and those memories will always be with me. So
Thank you so much, Rosalie.
well, thank you for the opportunity. I was a little reluctant to do this, but this has been very fun.
It's fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.